Hello Pokemon fans, welcome back to another Deck Tech Thursday where we go over deck profiles that will be competitive or have been competitive, so you guys have an opportunity to build a deck for yourself that you might do well within a tournament. So this week we are back again, and it is the Thursday after the World Championships have finished, and we kind of got shocked. The top two decks being Greninja, Talonflame, and also Mega Audino. Who would have seen Mega Audino coming? I know I didn't. I have to say though, Greninja Talonflame is actually a deck that I had built the Friday before Worlds at a tournament, and I just threw it together, decided to try to put it together and see if it would work. It worked out really well, I just had really bad matchups, so I never won anything with it. I never would have thought that somebody else would have come up with the idea and actually done really well with it. But they did, so that was really cool to see Cody Walensky being able to do that well. But of course, Shintaro Ito took the victory at Worlds, so we're actually going to be profiling a very similar build to his. I do have his deck list, obviously, and we're basically doing here is we're going to turn this into a standard deck profile. So this can be used for the 2017 season. There's some stuff missing, there's some stuff added. It's just kind of like something I've been working with a little bit. It works really well, I have to say. The deck being hit by missing the AZs that were there definitely hurts, having that no longer in rotation. That is one thing that hurt really bad. But other than that, the deck really works well. I don't have any problems making it work, so we're going to give it a shot here today. And we're going to show you guys my take on the 2017 standard version of Mega Audino. So with that being said, we're going to get started here with the Pokemon lineup. And it's pretty similar to, actually, I think it's exactly what Shintaro Ito's was in the first place. So first and foremost here, we have 4 copies of Audino EX. Now, Audino EX is a very, very high retreat cost Pokemon. As you can see down here, the retreat cost is 3 on this monster. It's got 180 HP, 2 attacks, Drain Slap, and Do the Wave. Not really anything you're going to want to use, except maybe in a pinch. Do the Wave is not a terrible attack, but it is expensive, and it doesn't do a ton of damage, but this, of course, you're going to need to evolve into Mega Audino. So we do play 4 of them. Most Mega-based decks that are just strictly reliant on Mega Evolution Pokemon, they do tend to have a 4-3 count, which this one is absolutely no different, as you're about to see here in just a moment. I do have 3 copies of Mega Audino EX. Now, Mega Audino EX is very interesting. It's got 220 HP, so it's pretty bulky. It can stand a hit pretty well. And it's got an attack called Magical Symphony. It does 110 damage, and if you played a supporter card from your hand during this turn, this attack does 50 damage to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. Now, you don't apply weakness or resistance for the benched Pokemon, but again, it keeps its 3 retreat costs, so this thing is really, really bulky. Very, very hard to get out of the active position unless you want it there, which is why we're going to be running some switching cards, which you'll find out here in a little bit as we get further into the deck. But it does hit pretty hard, 110 and then 50 to the bench. It's pretty respectable, especially in a format where Night March and Greninja pretty much ruled, which is exactly why I think this deck was piloted to victory. Even against other decks, though, I really feel like it stands a decent chance. I don't think it's going to be, a tier 1 deck anymore, if it ever was. I mean, it only won Worlds. It's only one tournament that it even showed up in, for that matter. But I still think that this is a pretty solid deck. 110 and 50 is very respectable for 3. We have access to Mega Turbo and Double Colorless Energy because it's all colorless, so I think it'll work pretty well. Alright, next Pokemon we're going to have here is 2 copies of Shaymin EX for setup. Of course, we're going to try to get the deck going as fast as we possibly can. 2 copies of Shaymin EX to get extra cards into our hand without playing supporter, or play a supporter and still get extra cards. Very important. I know a lot of you guys in the comment section are like, make a deck without Shaymin, but the truth of the matter is that here on the Pokemon Evolutionaries, we want to make sure we're building as competitive deck as possible for you guys. And the truth of the matter is that to be a competitive player, you've got to have Shaymin in this format. I wish we didn't. Octillery is okay, but here's the problem with Octillery. Number 1, it's an evolution Pokemon. And number 2, it does not draw up to 6. It draws up to 5. So you are missing 1 card. Also, if it gets Lysandered, it's stuck in the active position with a high retreat cost. Whereas Shaymin is a 1 retreat cost, and you can also just Sky Return if you want to get it out of the active and still deal 30 damage. That's why Shaymin is superior to Octillery. I know you guys don't like to hear that, but Fact of the matter is that nothing can replace Shaman in the competitive scene. For fun, put in whatever you like. I mean, you know, not everything's got to be highly competitive. Pokemon is meant to be a fun game, so you guys can feel free to put in whatever you like. But I'm just building decks based upon competitiveness for players who want to have an idea of what they can play to be good in the competitive TCG as it stands right now. With that being said, let's move on here to the next Pokemon. We got one copy of Hoopa EX. Scoundrel Ring, it's just here for this ability. When you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench, you may search your deck for up to 3 Pokemon EX except for Hoopa, reveal them, put them into your hand, shuffle your deck afterward. So the idea here is that you're going to want to use your Ultra Balls very early on in the game, bench the Hoopa, search for, you know, a Shaman and 2 Audino, or a Shaman, an Audino, and a Mega Audino, whatever the case is. You want to do that early to set this deck up as quick as possible. Hoopa is really, really good for that, and I'm glad that this card exists for EX decks for that reason. Really helps get things moving for decks that otherwise wouldn't have any chance at all. I mean, Mega Evolution Pokemon never even had a chance to be played, really, before Hoopa EX came out, for the most part. Mega Manectric was an exception. Alright, now on to the non-EX Pokemon. We've got one copy of Cobalion from Steam Siege. This is a really cool Pokemon. For the first attack, Quick Guard. For a single Metal Energy, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from basic Pokemon during your opponent's next turn, and you can't use this attack during your next turn. So if you need to stall for a turn and your opponent's playing basics, just attach a Steel and buy yourself a turn with Quick Guard. Hope they don't have a Lysander. That's pretty much all you can hope for on that one. But then, this looks really familiar. Revenge Blast for 30 damage, and it does 30 more damage for each prize card your opponent has taken. This is very, very reminiscent of Worlds 2014, where we saw Shaman EX from Legendary Treasures, or Next Destinies, however you want to look at it, being played in Virizion Genesect. Revenge Blast was the attack that he was dependent on, and it just wasn't quite enough. But I think it's really cool to see this card again in a Steel version and a non-EX, or Metal version I should say, and a non-EX Pokemon, because it's a really powerful late game attack if you run out of Audino. So it's pretty neat. And last here we have a copy of Absol from Roaring Skies. It's strictly here for the ability Cursed Eyes. When you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench, you may move 3 damage counters from one of your opponent's Pokemon to another of his or her Pokemon. So what you're going to want to do here is, once you deal your 110 with Magical Symphony, you've got 50 on the bench. So what you're going to want to do there is, dependent on where you're trying to hit for numbers, you can move 30 to a Pokemon that might knock it out, because you're not hitting any numbers here with 110 or 50. You're only dealing a total of 160. You can move 30. So you might have some here or there that might have some odd numbers that you can just deal 30 off of one and onto another. So Absol is kind of cool for that, just to kind of hit some numbers that you wouldn't be able to hit without it. So that's it for the Pokemon lineup. Now, this is a very, very heavy it's heavily reliant on supporters, because you're dealing 50 damage only if you play a supporter for the turn. So this deck is going to be very supporter heavy, as you're about to find out. So of course we've got our standard 4 copies of Professor Sycamore. Discard your hand, draw 7 cards. Draw support is very important in the game. Obviously, I've said this many times over and over again. So Professor Sycamore is a must. We also play 3 copies of N. Shuffle your hand, both of you. Shuffle your hand, both you and your opponent shuffle your hand into his or her deck. Each player draws a card for each of his or her remaining prize cards, and is, of course, a staple. Ever since it's come back, Birch has kind of been fallen by the wayside. No use in using that. Sean has been kind of pointless too. Sycamore and N seem to be the only 2 that are really in the front running. So, next up here, we've got 2 copies of Lysander. Lysander is really important in this deck, because you're going to want to bring something on the bench that's already damaged by 50 and be able to hit it for 110. And there's also a way you can work that out even better later on in the game. You'll find that one out, but we'll work on that. So for now, we got 2 copies of Lysander, just to play a supporter and be able to take advantage of that 50 to the bench. Here we go. This is the card I was talking about. I didn't realize that I had this one next, so this is what I'm talking about. 1 copy of Giovanni's Scheme. Muscle Band is gone. Besides, you're going to have a Spirit Link attached to Audino anyways. You can do one of 2 things. Draw cards until you have 5 into your hand, or during this turn, your Pokemon's attacks do 20 more damage to the opponent's active Pokemon. So this is where this card comes into play and makes it really interesting. Now, you're dealing 110 damage with Magical Symphony. You're dealing an additional 20 damage, making it 130, and you're doing 50 to the bench. So what you can do is, if there's a Pokemon that's been on the bench that's in the active position now, it has 50 on it. and they're thinking, okay, I got 180 HP, for instance. We're just going to say 180, like Audino, for instance. Even 170. There's no way you're going to get knocked out. That's what your opponent is thinking. I can't get knocked out now. They're only dealing 110. That leaves them with at least 10 or 20 HP. Play this down, boom. You're hitting for the magic number of 170 total damage, or I'm sorry, 180 total damage to knock out a 170 or a 180 Pokemon. So Giovanni's scheme is really, really good for that reason. I just feel like it's very important to have some kind of damage multiplier now that we've lost Muscle Band, and you cannot use Fighting Fury Belt in this deck because you can use it on Cobalion, but that's really about it. You're not going to attack with Hoopa, you're not going to attack with Absol. You really shouldn't be attacking with Audino EX either, so Giovanni seems to be the way to go, and you can always VS Secret and play it over and over again. Also, we have one copy of Pokemon Center Lady, heal 60 damage from and remove all special conditions from one of your Pokemon. So this actually, this is a really good card. You got a 220 HP Pokemon, and they take a certain amount of damage. Heal 60 off of it, it's like making it into 280. Really, really hard to 2-hit knock out that Pokemon. It turns it into a 3-hit knockout. I actually played this card against N in a playtesting we were doing with this deck, and this card won me the game because he was 10 short after I used Pokemon Center Lady for being able to knock me out and win the game, essentially, because it was my last Mega Audino. I took the win because I was able to stay with 10 HP left on Mega Audino. It was beautiful. So a really good card, definitely for sure. Also, we got one copy of Hex Maniac. Until the end of your opponent's next turn, each Pokemon in play, each player's hand, and each player's discard pile has no abilities. So that also includes cards that come into play on that turn. So Hex Maniac shuts down abilities. Really important for a lot of decks that are ability reliant. This one is pretty ability reliant as well. You're depending on Hoopa, Habsol, and Shaman. Not heavily reliant, but it's, you know, it's mediate. It's like a medium reliance on abilities in this case. So this would shut it down. Now, with that being said, if somebody else plays Hex Maniac against you, or if Garbodor comes out, which is probably going to happen quite a bit in decks here in the future, we have one other way to get out our Pokemon, at least these Pokemon right here, your Audino, Mega Audino, and Shaman. If you can't use Hoopa, or if Hoopa's prized, you have a backup in Winona. This is a card that has not been around recently. Search your deck for up to 3 colorless Pokemon, reveal them, and put them into your hand, shuffle your deck afterwards. Really good card. It was once used in Mega Rayquaza back when it first came out, and then it just kind of fell by the wayside, thanks to Hoopa. But I still feel it's important to have one copy of this because you might be ability locked, Hoopa might be prized. This will help you get out your colorless Pokemon a lot easier and without having to use up all your Ultra Balls. Alright, that is it for the supporter lineup. There is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 supporter cards. You should always be able to play one supporter card for your Magical Symphony attack. Alright, now we're going to move on to the items. Standard, of course, we've got 4 copies of VS Seeker. Put a supporter card from your discard pile into your hand. Now you're turning this from 13 supporters into 14, 15, 16, 17 supporters. So there's no reason at all why you should not be able to play a supporter card on every turn. If you miss it, I'm sorry. That's all I can say. So next up here, we've got 4 copies of Ultra Ball. Discard 2 cards from your hand and search your deck for a Pokemon, reveal it, put it in your hand, shuffle your deck afterwards. Of course, Ultra Ball is just really important. It gets your hand size down for Shaman. It also allows you to get your Hoopa EX and your Cobalion, your Absol, any of these Pokemon really, but for the most part, it's mainly just to get your hand size down for Shaman. Alright, next up here, we've got 4 copies of Trainer's Mail. This is a pretty high count of items, important ones at that. So look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You may reveal a trainer card you find there, except for Trainer's Mail. Put it into your hand, shuffle the other cards back into your deck. This can help you get Spirit Links, it can help you get Ultra Ball, it can help you get Seekers, it can help you get Supporters. So now we're talking 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 potential ways now to get a supporter card. It's absolutely crazy how that works. Alright, next up, we've got 4 copies of Audino Spirit Link for consistency. A lot of people argue in a 4-3 line, you do not need 4 copies of Spirit Link, but however, in the original list, there was 4 copies of Spirit Link, so I'm going to keep 4 copies in here. Of course, Mega Audino Spirit Link is what allows you to Mega Evolve without losing your turn. So, very important, and, I mean, it's your main attacker. You got to have as many of them as possible. One could be prized, you never know how that might work, so. Alright, that's going to do it for the Spirit Links. So that gives us our 444 counts 4 counts of items. Now we're going to go into our lesser counts of items. First up, we got 2 copies of Mega Turbo. Attach a basic energy card from your discard pile to one of your Mega Evolution Pokemon. This allows you to basically evolve a Mega Audino with a Spirit Link attached. You can attach a DCE and Mega Turbo from the discard pile, which you can throw away energy with your Ultra Balls, and you're attacking in 1 turn. Or 2 turns, actually, because you need a turn to let it sit there before you can evolve. So 2 copies of Mega Turbo. We got 1 copy of Super Rod. Sometimes you just need to get some Pokemon back, maybe even some energy back if you absolutely have to. You can shuffle 3 of any combination of those into your deck and discard, or from your discard pile into your deck. There's that. We have 1 copy of Special Charge. Enhanced Hammers, Crushing Hammers are very, very detrimental to this deck. I found that out in playtesting against another energy denying deck. So Special Charge, shuffle 2 special energy cards from your discard pile into your deck. It turns your 4 DCE into 6. All right, now we're going to show these 3 cards all at the same time because they're all switching cards. We've got 1 Float Stone, 1 Escape Rope, and 1 Switch. Like I said, you've got a lot of Pokemon here that are heavy retreat cost. You got 3 on Audino, 3 on Mega Audino, 2 on Hoopa, 2 on Cobalion. And that's pretty heavy. Your Float Stone, you're going to want to attach to your Hoopa here because there's really no way for tools to be removed anymore in the 2017 format as of right now. So you're going to attach your Float Stone to Hoopa at all times. And if you get anything else stuck in the active, you got 2 other ways out. You got a Switch and you got an Escape Rope. So that is important, I think, in this deck to make sure that you have. All right, I'm running out of room, so I'm going to stack up my retreating cards here. There's a lot to this deck. All right, onto the stadiums. We've got 2 copies of Parallel City. There's a couple of ways you can put this, but in this deck, you're going to want to have the blue side facing your opponent. The reason behind that is you're going to choose whichever this card faces. The player that this is pointing to, the blue side, can't have more than 3 benched Pokemon. This is really, really important against decks like Mega Rayquaza. And then the other way, you're going to have your damage from Grass, Fire, and Water Pokemon reduced by 20. Now, you don't have any Grass, Fire, or Water Pokemon, so Parallel City is good for that. You're limiting your opponent's bench. They can't play Shamans, and you're also hurting the attacks of Mega Rayquaza in the process. Okay, so final thing we have here is our Metal Energy. We've got 6 copies of basic Metal Energy. The only reason why is because Cobalion is Metal type. That's really the only reason. You can play any kind of energy with this. You can even attempt to possibly build a Fairy version of this deck and access Fairy Drop to heal off damage from Mega Audino as well. But the problem with that is that there's really no good attackers, at least basic attackers like Cobalion, that run with Fairy Energy. You would have to play Rainbow Energy, and then it gets a little dicey because you're dealing 10 damage to yourself for attaching the Rainbow Energy to Mega Audino, and then you become 210. It's a little sketchy, so I think that this is probably the better of the 2. And then we got 4 copies of Double Colorless Energy because it takes 3 colorless, so it only makes sense to attach the Double Colorless here. Not to mention you can still Sky Return if you want to as well. Not that you'd want to, but it's the option is there. That's the important thing. So anyways, guys, this is the Mega Audino deck that I came up with you guys for the 2017 Standard Rotation format for Primal Clash onward. So these cards are all legal. I had to take out the cards that were not. I believe this deck prior had a Xerosic, it had 2 AZ, and a Startling Megaphone. So this should only be about 4 cards off of the original list that Shintaro had that won the 2016 World Championships. So you guys can do whatever you want with this deck. Try to build it for yourself. Have some fun with it. Change some things around. Whatever works for you guys. This is just what I came up with. There's many, many other ways to build this deck, I am sure. But this is just the one that I came up with. So you guys can do what you want with it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to hit that like button, comment down below, and of course, subscribe for more TCG content here on the Pokemon Evolutionaries. And make sure to stay tuned next Tuesday for another Deck Tech Thursday, where N will profile one of his decks. And then that Friday, which will be a week from tomorrow, will be our Battle Frontier Friday for the 2 decks that we profiled. This one versus whatever he decides to build in the future. So hope you guys stay tuned for that. Anyways, guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and we hope to see you guys in the next one. I'm Professor K for the Pokemon Evolutionaries. See you guys next time.